describe the persistent itch associated with scabies, the term's focus has changed to describe the intense desire to have an affair during the 7th year of marriage. Ironically, one of the traditional 7th anniversary gifts is wool, a fiber that causes irritability and, yes, itchiness. Which came first, the itch or the wool? Whether medical or marital, there's no question that an itch causes the desire to do something that feels good, regardless of the inappropriateness of the activity.
No, hold on. That's what it was. That's what it was. I'm gonna read it again. I'm gonna read it again. Okay. Okay. Listen to this. Listen to this. Do you folks agree or disagree with the statement? Men make love to their mistresses and have sex with their wives. I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit. Before you respond, let it sit for a little bit. Really think about what that's saying.
I don't think that it's necessarily that men make love to their mistresses and have sex with their wives. I think that what it is their wives. I had a whole explanation for this, but what it is their wives represent every day, right? So they represent the kids in the house and the bills and the braces and the soccer and the whatever and the stress of everyday life, right? So sex is just something that you do. As far as the mistress goes, the mistress takes away all of that, you know? So the act of intercourse, it becomes more loving with the mistress because because the stress isn't there, right? So it's like itching. You're itching. Okay, so because you're itching, I'll let you speak.
No, please finish. No, you have to finish.
So the act becomes more loving because it is with this person who takes away the stress of the everyday. They could be in love, they could not, right? But the fact of the matter is that that woman is not. She's not the source of the. She's not the wife.
She's not the wife.
She's not the wife. She's not the source of the stress. Or what is
extremely problematic statement on so many levels. One, it assumes that all men want to marry, which is not the truth. Two, it does not give space for polyamory or non-monogamous relationships. Three, it assumes that that I couldn't speak to the primary lover in my relationship about the desires to have a secondary lover. I've been in threesomes. I was in a 7-year open relationship, actually, with a woman I was in weddings and funerals with, an extremely deep relationship where her and I went to sex clubs with alternate partners. She was with 5 other men in the course of our 7 years. I was with 4 other women. Clearly communicated, totally honest, passionately shared. There's so much connection and truth. So the idea that I would be a man that it just does a routine intimacy with the woman that I sleep beside 6 days a week, but then I save my passion and my good hip thrusting and my real love making for the woman that I cheat on my wife with, is that whole concept is just unhealthy on 9,000 levels. And I want to just articulate that a man like me does exist, where I don't see me getting a wife, but if I did have a wife, before I would go out and cheat on her, I would say, hey wife, I'm interested in my secretary, and I want to honestly sit down and talk to you about my desires to sleep with my secretary. And I respect you as a woman, so as a wife, so I want to be real with you and not cheat on her.
But I was also thinking, the statement sounds strange, but it's probably the opposite of what you would expect. But when you think about it, the wife is tied and is there, and she's married, she's committed, family, everything's going on. The mistress, there's nothing really tying her there. So I feel like the man would probably have to put more effort into it, and whether or not it's love making, I think it would probably mimic it, or he has to keep her hooked somehow. And I mean, I'm not assuming that all mistresses are swindled and tricked, but at least the ones we see on TV a lot of times are hoping that he's going to leave and waiting for him to leave. And a lot of them, they sell them this, I'm going to leave soon, or just wait a couple of years, or just until this. So I think that they would have to bring it up a notch in order to keep them hanging around.
How many times has that happened? though? The one where the man turns to the wife and says, "Hey, I'm interested in my secretary." Like how many times, or I'm interested in a polyamorous relationship. Like how many times does that really happen?
I have very few male friends. I have almost no black male friends that are beyond that honest. It's because we're not trained to do it. We're not
but
taught
that's
to
exactly
do it.
it, right? So like when you make love to your mistress, right? It's because that you can't have that kind of communication with your wife. Unfortunately, I think. Anyway.
Exactly.
If you're deciding to marry somebody or spend your life with somebody and you cannot have that conversation, then
There is a problem.
I know.
Yeah.
See, I understand at the point. Say, for example, you get married. Perhaps you didn't have these urges, whatever. But if you are to say that you're going to spend your life with somebody, I think there should be some sort of an understanding that we change as human beings. So at some point, when you finally realize, hey, I have now evolved into this other thing. If you cannot have that conversation with that person and respect them enough to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and that person doesn't respond that way, then you give them that choice to either stay with you and allow you to choose to do whatever you want, and they do something else, or they leave. But I mean, like, if we talk about this woman as this inanimate being that is just standing around waiting for things not to happen or whatever, we take that away from her. I think everything has to do with choice and communication, and I think that once you decide as a human being to say, I'm going to respect this person.
I don't know if I'm weird in this dynamic. I don't care who my partner sleeps with, but I'm emotionally jealous. I want to be that special person.
Of course, I think
When you
and
say
so-
you don't care,
I
what
don't
do you
care
mean?
what level of communication you have to offer me. I don't want to share you emotionally with another person.
So you can handle the physical, but the,
You can physically have sex
But
with
the
whoever,
emotional
but I need to be
aspect.
special to you. Like I chose you, you chose me because I was special, and I want to maintain that. And so when you talk about the boundaries that you are fine with a man, you know, the spark that is ignited. Yeah, we share multiple sparks, but a romantic spark, I don't. You should never feel that for
It's
another
with
person
somebody else.
besides me, and then act on it. Obviously, it'll happen. It happens, but then act on it.
And that's what I was trying to say.
But if
What's
you
your romantic
because
but
that
again,
but that,
again, it
I'm not
comes
talking about
comes back
sex
to
because,
communication.
like I said, I don't care how he communicates to me.
No, what I mean is,
Wow.
Like you could tell me the truth, and I'll be like, "That's great. I'm gonna leave because that's my boundary, right?"
When we're talking about love and sexuality and vulnerability, it appeals to all people. But I kind of want to bring it back to black men in North America for just a moment. And the kind of idea that the black men have this role kind of placed before them, of, you know, someone said to me, you know, the reason why black men are the way they are is because back in the day, when I say back in the day, slavery, everything goes kind of back to slavery sometimes, but for a lot of arguments. What the argument that the person gave me was that, you know, when you don't have power over, you know, your circumstance, you try to have power over other people, kind of thing. You try to, you know, so for a man, his power, you know, he was a stud, you know what I mean? And you go around and you do what you do, and you have a whole bunch of women, and this is your, you know, I'm a boss because I have look at how fruitful I am, and, you know, all these children all over the place. And it's interesting because this young man that I was speaking to, he's like, I'm not that stud. I don't want to have all these women and what have you. So I'm wondering if you guys can, I know that a lot of us in this room are mature and older. If you kind of go back to that beginning stage of manhood, when you started to find girls attractive, when you started to date, if you felt that pressure to be, you know, the player, the boss, and have all those women around you, and if you didn't want to be that, and you weren't that, how did you stay firm and be who you are? I don't know who wants to jump into that.
I'll jump.
To keep and care it, you've got to water it. Got to keep the earth so cool, yeah. 'Cause something special is in